Good morning. Oh boy, everyone is tired. Good morning. There you go. That's better. All right, let's get down to it. The beer story again. Okay. What I want to do today to discuss a couple of things with you. The agenda that I want to go over with you is quickly to cover and at a high level, 3 CPI methodologies and what are they trying to achieve, and then go over a case study that we did at our company comparing the effects of TLS, Lean, and Six Sigma. Then we'll review the study together, and we'll go over the TLS model and share with you some of the lessons learned in a process. I think it was very clear with the previous speakers that all of us under tremendous amount of pressure. Our customers are asking for us to do more with less. They're expecting us to provide higher qualities despite of cost cuttings and so on and so forth. And again, it's also obvious that organizations that aren't fit or they don't possess these type of capabilities are going to be replaced by their rivals. So that starts a tremendous race. And the question is, who's going to win that race? The issue of why change is required, let's just take a look at a couple of excerpts. There are 38% of companies basically are saying that despite of their continuous improvement efforts, they have not been able to cut any costs. Also, you see tremendous amount of disengagement in a workforce and management. Basically, here's a study that says that 20% of warehouse workers describe themselves as actively disengaged. 50% say that they're just there. What do you expect? What sort of continuous improvement you want to have? On the other side, data shows that the cost of poor quality is significant. In manufacturing environments, we could have 20 to 30% of the cost of sales, or actually the revenues, to be the cost of poor quality. It gets worse in service environment, 30 to 40%, and of course in software environment, it gets a lot worse. So it becomes really clear that continuous improvement is a necessity, and we have to go through that route. To comply to that, during past 25 years, great continuous improvement methodologies have been introduced to challenge the assumptions, to continuously improve the processes, and so on. Currently, probably 90% of the CPI or continuous improvement initiatives are either Lean, Six Sigma, or theory of constraints. By the way, how many people use Lean here? How about Six Sigma? And TOC? Okay. All right, great. Let's quickly go over these 3 approaches. I will not deep dive, but what I want to do is just cover the basics. Obviously, as every one of you know, TOC was originated by Dr. Eli Goldratt, and it's also known as the constraint management philosophy and approach. The core message with the TOC is that rate of revenue generation or throughput is limited by at least one constraint. And only when we attend to that one constraint is that we are able to increase the throughput. Theory of constraints is extremely effective as a management philosophy, especially when we are dealing with change, because it is able to address certain things that are not just science, they're art and science. It addresses the core questions that a lot of time left unanswered and people just dive in first, is why change? Why do you want to change? And if you want to change, what is it that you want to change? And most importantly, what do you want to change it to? And of course, how to cause the change. That is the motivation factor, that how to cause that. And of course, going through the PUGI process, where Dr. Goldratt spoke about that quite a bit, process of ongoing improvement. The process of constraint identification, containment, and prevention. This is important, containment and prevention. A lot of time we deal with containment and we leave it. And we forget about how to prevent the constraint or the issues to pop back up. The 5 focusing steps addresses that by identifying the constraint, exploiting it, subordinating other activities to the constraint, elevating it, and obviously at this time, it is obvious that we probably have shifted the constraint somewhere else in an organization. Go back to the first step and rescan the system. Let's take a look at lean quickly. Lean is the best lean system is known as the Toyota production system. It focuses on the 7 sources of waste, which is overproduction, waiting or queuing, whether it's for people or processes, too much inventory, unnecessary motion, unnecessary transportation, overprocessing, and creation of any sort of defect or rework. Ohno says that lean pursues optimum streamlining through the entire system, through elimination of muda or waste, and aims to build quality in the manufacturing processes while recognizing principles of the cost reduction. It also includes accompanying all necessary technology to accomplish those tasks. A successful lean goes through key steps, which identifies the value. What do we mean by value? We hear value add, non-value add, business value add. Understanding of what is value in the eyes of the customer. And obviously, that is what customer is willing to pay for or is paying for it. Now that we understand what customer is willing to pay for, how is that streamed without any waste in between? And how do we make it flow without any queuing or any disruptions in the process? Now that we have such a system, how do we make this river that is flowing to be flown demand-driven instead of being pushed by a forecast? Dr. Eli spoke about that quite a bit on a first day, I believe on Saturday. And if we have a system that is all value add, flows, it's being demand-driven, now we need to make it perfect so that there are no variability or variations in a process. Let's take a look at the Six Sigma process and see what Six Sigma is telling us at a high level. Six Sigma as an approach, as a methodology, was pioneered by Bill Smith at Motorola in 1986. Initial objective was to be a metric, to be used to identify quality defects. Simply, a Six Sigma process tells us that if I have a process that is Six Sigma capable, I could bet that I would not have more than 3.4 bad parts per million. I want to sort of correlate this Six Sigma principle or Sigma rating or quantification of system capabilities with earlier benchmarks that we had on a cost of poor quality. As you notice, for example, manufacturing is somewhere between 2.5 to 4 Sigma levels. It degenerates when you go to services. You're talking about around 2 Sigma levels. And for software organizations, it's quite poor. I won't go through the definitions of the Sigma and all those things. I'm sure you all know that. But it all talks about variation and variability. And the goal of Six Sigma process is to identify the sources of variability in process, the source of variation in process, and contain it. What is variability? What is variation? What is sigma? Sigma, variation, is error. The goal is to understand the error. Where are they generated? What is their nature? Are they natural phenomenons, or they're sporadic events, or what is it that we need to contain? And the goal of the process is to take the process, take the errors. As the errors are taken away, obviously the process shrinks and becomes tighter and tighter around its mean. And the goal is to squeeze a process so tight around the mean so that the errors are not seen, even though if the process may even by itself have a little bit of a drift and does not touch the specification limits. Six Sigma has many different approaches. Of course, the most popular approach is DMAIC. DMAIC is understand, define where the source of variation is, measure it, how much, analyze the signal, the source, whether it's a random, what sort of noise, whether it's an assignable cause, or something that you want to go and find out. Then modeling the process for best or optimal performance. And obviously, when we get to the optimal performance, how do we control the gains? How do we sustain the process so that as we walk away from it, it doesn't fall apart? DMAIC addresses that. Of course, Six Sigma users also call DMAIC as the dumb managers always ignore customers. So it is clear, there are literatures, there are quite clear evidence that implementation and application of these philosophies have brought significant results. They are effective. Companies like Toyota, Motorola, GE, Boeing, Intel, and all, they could speak to you about their impact and results. The goal of majority of for-profit organizations is that to achieve maximum profit ethically now and in future. I believe that's what Dr. Goldratt said. But the question is, how? I know that I have to use CPI, CI, whatever you want to call it, continuous improvement methodology, but which one? Any one of them claim to be the best, and also as you practice them, you also identify and you also understand there are gaps in the process. This was one of the issues that the company that I work for, Sanmina SCI, was facing with. Wanted to understand, what should we do? Okay, we know that we have to use CPI methodology or approach. Which approach? Which one gives us the most impact? So what we wanted to do was to quantitatively analyze and understand the contributions of each one of these methodologies. And when we understand which one of these methodologies has the optimal benefit to the company, we'll go ahead and globally apply it. In the organization, like many of the previous speakers and you have experience with, Lean and Six Sigma had been used in the company for several years. They had shown that they were able to generate projects, and they had shown that they were able to reduce costs in quite a bit of instances. I also offered TLS as an approach. This was an opportunity for me to, at that time I was working on my dissertation, and I chose this topic because there was no literature, there were no study done on this thing, and I combined it with my work, and I have offered integration or trial of a TLS model as well. Okay, the idea was go ahead, all right, let's go ahead and measure the results of Lean and Six Sigma and TLS, analyze their results, and what criteria should we use. The criteria that my company was quite familiar with was cost benefits. I did not want to fight that. Acceptable, not a problem. We decided that if that is the criteria, all the projects, we will issue projects for Lean, for TLS, and Six Sigma. Then we aggregate all the results. But these results, they have to be validated by the plant manager, by the project team, by the local controller, and the VP who owns that P&L to make sure that the numbers are accurate and are fair. We also decided to use the US operations only to minimize the influence of other variabilities such as socioeconomical and cultural issues. Just give you a little bit of perspective about the environment. Sanmina SCI is a EMS organization, electronic manufacturing organization. It's a contract manufacturing. We manufacture for telecommunication, defense, aerospace, automotive, computing, and many, many other organizations. We employ about over 48,000 employees. We have 87 plants in 20 countries in 5 continents. And our manufacturing spaces are over 13 million square foot. Our revenues for last year, for the year 2006 were $11.7 billion. The company has achieved many awards, including Frost & Sullivan, and so on. Within this environment, we took the US operation, and we said in order to have the full degree of freedom for this designed experiment, each plant who wanted to participate in the study was free to apply whatever CPI methodology that they were comfortable with, and they felt that they have the materials, they have the expertise, and so on and so forth. 21 plants participated. The study took about 2.5 years. 11 plants chose to apply Six Sigma. 4 plants applied Lean, and 6 plants risked with me on TLS. During the course of this 2.5 years, we trained 211 team leaders, and by the end of the project, 101 projects were finished. And as I said, again, each site was completely free to apply their own methodology, as long as it was known, and use whatever coaching that was necessary to get the projects done. Plant sizes, population, and their earnings and all those things, they were somewhat mixed so that we didn't have a huge skew in the study. After this study, what we wanted to do analysis of variance as one of the tools. Of course, as you're familiar with analysis variance, the first assumption is that there's no change. I've got different treatments, different variables, and the first assumption is that there's no change between them. And of course, the challenging assumption is at least one of them is different than the other one. When we compared Lean and Six Sigma, I think I'm stuck again here. Let's see if we can get this manually moving. Mr. Allen. There it came. Okay, when we compared Lean and Six Sigma results, I've taken a log of the data to mask the financial information, and compared it to the Six Sigma. As you notice, that they both appear to be from the same distribution. There is no significant difference, and the difference that we see is perhaps natural variability of the process, with a p-value of 0.622, which says you can see this. You should be able to see this on and on. Therefore, we accepted the null hypothesis, or the original assumption, that there was no difference between the contributions of Lean and Six Sigma. How about doing it a little bit different? Okay. Let's talk about TLS and its components. Before we see the results of this study. Actually, let's take a look at the results of the study first. Again, the original assumption is that Lean, Six Sigma, TLS, they're all CPI methodologies. Whether it's a Hawthorne effect or whatever that you want to call it, they would have the same effect. Therefore, their contributions would be the same. And the challenging assumption, at least one of them is significantly different than the other one. We saw the previous results of Lean and Six Sigma, but when they were compared with the TLS, we noticed that the distribution and gains achieved from TLS is significantly different, with a p-value of 0, which says there is 0 probability that this observation or this study, the results were due to chance. There has to be an assignable cause that is creating that. Taking a look at the project benefits, each project's financial gains achieved, we noticed that Lean and Six Sigma definitely were viable projects, they were viable approaches, they contributed. But TLS approach contributed almost 4 times higher in financial results than either one of them. So let's go ahead and take a look at the components of the TLS and quickly review that again. Starting with TOC, for the purpose of constraint management and global optimization. In order to understand what is the constraint, it is quite important that that understanding is critical to not just focus on the physical stuff. Many of our issues come from policy constraints, political constraints. Many times those are ignored. It is important also to constantly take a look at the big picture to systematically apply process improvement, not for the sake of local optimization. Lean is applied to remove waste, to completely focus and understand what is the meaning of value to the customer, where are they, what do they look like, which areas there are dams to the flow of the river of the process, and how should they be removed. Six Sigma is used to perfect the process in terms of taking out as much variability that is necessary and possible from the process by applying whatever methodology that you like, DMAC, DMADV, or whatever. But also quantitatively and statistically and strategically match the voice of the customer to the voice of the process and design a process that is robust to the natural variability of the processes. Many of us know, perhaps, it does make sense to put these together, and intuitively we know that. Let me share with you with a model that I believe it has the optimum mixture. Start the process with theory of constraints. Understand where the constraints are and how to exploit it. Is it a mystery, or you know that less than 3% of managers are able to properly identify the problem statement? Is that a mystery to you? What about understanding that 60% of the projects that typically start, they're addressing the wrong thing? Have you seen that? Or 48% in one study, another says 48% of the reasons that Six Sigma projects failed because from the onset, they were not able to identify the right projects. I'm sure you have seen this quite frequently. Let's say you have a system, you have a process, 4 steps, simple, A, B, C, D, with production rates of 120, 185, and 110. Common sense tells us where to focus on C, but I'm sure you have seen this quite a bit. People go and work on something that It's already non-constrained. Improve it, claim victory. But would you see it on a bottom line? Would you see it on a P&L? Certainly not. It is extremely critical to apply TOC properly to focus. Now that I have focused on the process, now that I understand what the constraint is, I want to exploit it. To exploit it, I need to understand what value is, what non-value add is. How does the process flow? Where are the barriers in the process? Where are the dams so I can remove the dams? And how I can pull this process to be demand-driven. And when I have that, I'm ready to perfect the process. To perfect the process, slap Six Sigma on it. To understand where are the sources of variabilities? Where are the sources that cause the process to oscillate? What are their natures? And focus on the ones that I can change, focus on the ones that have the biggest influence, then model that process and sustain it. Put SOPs and so on and so forth in place to sustain the process. Now that I have attended to my constraint, it is important for me to subordinate other activities to the constraint to make sure the constraint does not suffer. Constraint is elevated, and I could almost be sure that I have probably pushed the constraint somewhere else in the process. And it's important for me to go back and rescan the system. Application of TLS has shown to be extremely effective for us as a synergetic approach. Putting the right mixture of TOC, Lean, and Six Sigma together. The data showed that 89% of what we were able to achieve within the period of the study came from TLS projects. Six Sigma contributed to 7% of the financial gains, and Lean contributed to 4%. So there were a couple of other things that were extremely important in implementation. Having executive buy-in. Adolfo Anzaldúa, who was the senior VP of the division, sponsored the study, and also he has made that the TLS approach as a norm, as a normal approach to continuous improvement efforts within the LRS division. It is extremely important for us to have champions that do understand the global picture and are able to take the learnings across the board. It is important for the folks to be trained very well in TOC concepts, in Lean concepts, and Six Sigma. Understand the TLS engagement model, and also have very good and solid project management capabilities. The devil that I know is better than the one that I don't know. And change is always painful, even for myself. So the challenge is here that do we want to be the frontiers or do we want to be the laggers? Of course, the ones that do something first, there's a risk of putting your neck on the line. However, the gains are much leaner going forward.